When it comes to China, Russia, and even the Taliban, President Biden and his administration have been cautious and measured. But when it comes to making sure boys are allowed into girls' locker rooms and boys are allowed to play on girls' sports teams, he couldn't be clearer. Here are clips from a 5-minute back-to-school video posted by the Department of Justice just yesterday, in which the Biden administration essentially pledges to crack down on schools that disagree with the idea that boys can become girls.
But we also want you to know that the Department of Education and the entire federal government stand behind you.
Discrimination will not be accepted on our watch. Right now, we are fighting against laws that tried to ban transgender athletes in West Virginia and deny health care for transgender young people in Arkansas. We stand behind you and are ready to act to defend your rights.
Has the Biden administration turned the crosshairs away from the Taliban and onto those who dare to believe that boys cannot become girls? Joining me now to discuss this is Roger Severino, who served as a director of the HHS Office of Civil Rights in the Trump administration. He is currently a senior fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center. Roger, welcome back to the program.
How are you?
Great. Good to see you. What was your reaction when you first saw this video?
I thought it was a very unusual back-to-school statement. So many things going on with COVID and all the uncertainty. To focus on the transgender ideology, I thought was an interesting choice. But if you really listen closely, as you mentioned, it really is about allowing biological boys access to girls' locker rooms and access to the winner's podium in girls' sports, as well as healthcare. It's a question of should teens or even, prepubescent, be allowed to undergo these radical surgeries that will change their lives forever, and should doctors be required to go along with it? And that's really what it's about. And that's what's really shocking is how aggressive the Biden administration has been. And this video is further evidence of where their focus is. I mean, they had a person from HHS, Department of Education, as well as DOJ. So it is definitely a whole of government approach. They're using every tool in their arsenal to push transgender ideology during back-to-school season.
Do you think this video is really, as it claims to be on its face, simply a back-to-school message? Or are we expected to read between the lines and see a threat here for those who might disagree with the administration's perspective on sex?
Well, there's a whole lot of symbolism there. They wanted to get multiple agencies, and you had the transgender Dr. Rachel Levine, who's at transgender person who's at the Department of Health and Human Services, who's Assistant Secretary of Health. That's a high-ranking position. And including that for a back-to-school message, why do you need a medical doctor involved in that? Well, because it's really about the surgeries that's ultimately going to be pushed, as well as the cross-sex hormones. They're actually allowing prepubescent children to have puberty blockers that will have lifelong consequences. And of course, with the help in many very liberal places of their school counselors and their school nurses to cut out the parents from the equation. And what we're seeing here is that if parents start getting in the way and schools aren't pushing one particular view of this complicated question, then you might end up with a civil rights lawsuit being pushed by the Biden administration, or at the very least an investigation from these civil rights offices, of which I used to be the head of one.
The video specifically mentions a law in Arkansas that was passed this year to prohibit minors from undergoing sex change operations, and also a bill in West Virginia which requires biological males to compete on male sports teams. And they singled those states out as examples of problems that the Department of Justice was going after. Do you think that that is going to deter other states, other state legislatures, other school districts from exercising their best judgment on this subject?
Well, it depends. Are they going to fold like Governor Noem of South Dakota did when she got some pressure on this question? Or are they going to stand up like some of these other states have? And if they stand up, they have a tremendous amount of law backing them, because what's very misleading about that video, it wasn't about excluding transgender kids from sports, not at all. It's about protecting women's and girls' sports and keeping the playing field fair and making sure that these sports facilities and lockers and showers respect the privacy rights of biological girls who don't want to see biological boys, however they identify, in their intimate spaces. That should be a safe space for women and girls, as well as the winners' podiums in sports. Think of the scholarships that are at stake. This is a complete inversion of Title IX, which is designed to protect girls in sports, among other things, and to flip it to say that biological boys, based on how they identify, determines whether or not they could beat girls. That's just a place that we shouldn't go, and states are pushing back one after another.
Roger, we've got about a minute left, but there was a federal court case in Texas. In Texas, a federal court ruled that it is unlawful to force healthcare professionals to violate their conscience for gender transition procedures. Do you foresee the Biden administration appealing that decision and trying to overturn that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And we dealt with that case early on in the Trump administration. We agreed with the court, and we rolled back the Obama era transgender mandate. But the Biden administration has not even waited for court decisions on point. They've already announced that they're going to enforce a transgender mandate. And this injunction hopefully will rein them back in. But as we've seen time and again, they are simply not respecting the law. They're going to do what they're going to do because ideology is trumping science and even the rule of law.
Roger Severino, really appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.